You're listening to The Big Cast, your source for the latest in financial technology. Brought to you weekly by the Best Innovation Group, with your hosts, John Best and Glen Sarvati.
Welcome to another edition of The Big Cast. My name is Glen Sarvati on behalf of the Best Innovation Group, where we like to do cool things with financial technology. And I'm feeling just a little bit jet lagged today. Just got back from Finovate Europe over in London, where we did our usual thing of tracking down the companies on the demo stage that made the strongest impressions on us and tracked them down and had a chat. And we'll be sharing two of those chats in just a bit with companies that, as I said, stood out to me, named Tweezr and Keyless. A little bit more about that in just a second. First, let me remind you, you can always find out more about the Best Innovation Group by checking out our website, big-fintech.com. A couple of calendar items just to kind of get things going. If you're listening to this right as it drops, you still have a chance to join us live for the CU Town Hall on Wednesday, February 18th, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Live, lively, interactive Zoom session. It is free to join, but you do need to register in advance. We do have a guest this week, Brian Bodell, the CEO of a company called Movement. You may be familiar with them under their prior name, Digital Storefront. If you don't know Brian, you can look him up, but trust me when I say that he'll be sharing plenty of insights around digital marketing, embedded finance, and the state of the fintech world overall from an investment and QSO perspective. So hope you can join us again tomorrow, Wednesday, February 18th. cutownhall.com is where you can go to request an invitation. And if you happen to be listening after February 18th, cutownhall.com is the same place you can go and watch a replay of that. Also, hope you'll mark your calendars for March 30th through April 2nd and join us in San Francisco for CU Unplugged, an unconference that we're going to be putting on. If you enjoy the kind of things we talk about here on the Big Cast, and if you enjoy the types of things we cover on the CU Town Halls as well, we'll be digging into even more detail on those things at the CU Unplugged Unconference. And you'll be coming back to your home front with actionable projects, initiatives, hopefully, that can really enhance your capabilities back at the home front at your credit union. That's going to be taking place, as I said, right in the city of San Francisco at Visa's Market Support Center, which is a really great new facility. cu-unplug.com is where you can go to find out more about that, or drop me a note if you like. I'll be happy to tell you more about it. I think it's going to be a pretty cool thing. First time for this specific conference, but we've gone through this process of identifying on a member participant-led agenda and figuring out what people want to talk about, breaking up into groups, storming, norming, and performing, I guess is one way to put it. As always, let's just go through a couple of the big news items of the week before we jump into our interviews. And you may have seen this already. An Illinois judge has ruled in favor of the Illinois Interchange Fee Prohibition Act. If you were really optimistic, you might say you could take a glass half full, half empty approach on this one. I'm thinking I got to squint to see the glass being about 20% full. What this does mean is that the Illinois judge has upheld the law as was passed a couple of years ago by the Illinois legislature that says that no interchange can be charged on the tax and tip component of any card transactions running through systems for Illinois merchants. That is going to be challenging. And the one piece that was something of a positive is the judge threw out what had been pretty onerous restrictions on data use of the data that rides along with those transactions, which I think unintended consequences, the way it was drawn up, would have really limited the ability to fight fraud on card transactions as well. The reason given for throwing out that piece of the legislation was preemption of federal regulations that they were overstepping their bounds in the Illinois law. Not 100% certain I see the logic on that one, because it seems to me that there's preemption issues across the board, and that's exactly what the appeal that's being undertaken by the Illinois Credit Union League, ICBA, America's Credit Unions, the Illinois community bankers, everyone going from the banking standpoint who really knows how credit cards work and debit cards work are really still raising an issue here. Appeal has already been filed. And I had made a comment back in our predictions that I would, even before this decision was posted, I said, okay, regardless of what happens, right now the rule is there was already a 1-year extension on implementation of this law. It's currently slated to go into effect July 1. Now that we have another appeal, that may get pushed out even further. I still think we got a longer trail in front of this one. I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think cooler heads will eventually prevail. My personal suspicion is at some point the Illinois legislature is going to look back at it and go, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. I don't know how you could put this in place by July 1. I'm not sure how you can put it in place, period, when you think about the complexity of trying to do things in different ways in different states, figuring out who has responsibility and precedent in any individual case and transaction. Other states are already firing back into gear, having seen this, so this is not the last we're going to see of it. But be aware, because it's going to create more complexity in the payments world in the very near future, but hopefully not as early as July 1. On a slightly brighter note, new legislation is being introduced in both the Senate and Congress that would index the $10 billion threshold of the Durbin Amendment. That would, if you basically indexing on inflation, and I mentioned to somebody else I was talking to about this, I'm not sure inflation's the best way to index it, but it's probably the only way that you could rationally try to explain it to anybody, and it probably at least creates some level of relief for what's clearly a problem. $10 billion doesn't buy what it used to. And when the Durbin Amendment came into effect in 2010, that's what the threshold was, where banks were faced with this additional regulation. This legislation that's been introduced at this point, sponsored only by Republican, both senators and congressional leaders, it would retroactively apply an index of inflation, which, according to my calculation, would take the threshold up overnight to about 15 billion. That number, if you just go to a typical Google search and say, what's a dollar worth from 2010, it's about $1.48 you'd need today to do that. So I'm just rounding up a bit and saying 15 billion. The article, which I'll include in our links in our show notes, says that back in 2010, the Durbin Amendment was impacting 80 banks that were over 10 billion at that time. We're now up to 130 banks that would fall under that threshold. Just like, if incomes keep going up and you don't change the tax bracket, same basic idea. What I don't know, and I haven't seen any numbers on this, is how much of that growth from 80 banks to 130 is because of industry consolidation and banks getting bigger, and how much of it is purely because of inflation. I also don't know how many credit unions it affects. I got a feeling it's been an even more dramatic multiple in terms of how many have crossed the $10 billion threshold. I may try to sit down and do that math myself at some point, and if so, I will let you know. But right now, although the America's Credit Unions is in favor of this legislation, the Defense Credit Union Council has made clear they want it to be explicitly stated that it applies to credit unions as well as banks. I think that's implicit. I hope it's implicit, but it sure would be good to have it in writing. So again, we'll be following along with that one, still in the very early stages, but we'll see where that leads us. Now, as I said, on to our two interviews. Finovate Europe, taking place in London. Smaller group of demoing companies than we tend to see at their shows here in the US. I believe there were 24 of them. All took place in one day. The best of show approach usually tries to isolate the top 10% or so and give them an award. So there were 3. Everybody was allowed to vote for 3. And then the 3 highest vote getters were recognized with best of show at the end. One of the things I loved about the 24, there were very, very few. I think I went back and looked, maybe 3 of them I'd seen anything on stage before or heard much about. So this was really new territory for me. Today we've got interviews with companies that received 2 out of the 3 of my best of show votes. And hopefully you'll find out why when we have these conversations. So let's start with the one that not only got my vote, but also was an audience choice for one of the 3 best of show winners for 2026. So let's jump in with CEO and co-founder Ohad Kotler of a company called Tweezr. Well, the sun broke through for a couple of minutes and now it's clouded over again, which I guess is more par for the course here in February in London. But I'm here with Ohad Cutler, the CEO and co-founder of Tweezr, which was one of the best of show winners yesterday by audience vote here at Finovate Europe. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Now, and you got one of my votes as well. So
Appreciate it.
But one of the things that really kind of resonated with me, the way you laid it out, was you're lifting the hood on the black box of a lot of banking applications without a rip and replace solution and without just layering on top of it either, which seems like a tall order. Could you say a bit more about how you do that?
Yeah, I think so maybe as a bit of context,
Yeah.
I came from the banks, right? I
Okay.
was working as a bank and as a banker, led the product offering, and I saw how difficult and how painful these migration processes, migration challenges are on one hand, and also introducing things into the existing legacy is amazingly hard. So that combination led me to try to build something different and to put together a team in which we are attacking the problem from a different angle, in which we are really driving towards deep understanding of the existing systems, how they work, what do they do, how they operate, and enabling that understanding to be reflected not only for the developers, but also for the business people, kind of a proper business understanding of the processes that are happening within the system.
One of the things, I mean, the way you laid that out in the conversation was, the code can be so old that you've got one nearly retirement age developer who probably is the only one left in the shop that really truly understands it.
Yes, and we hear the story everywhere, including stories of like there's an entire system one guy has built, or only 3 people even have the ability to make any changes to those systems. And I think the challenge that we're all facing is that as AI is being introduced more and more, we will need to be addressing much more rapid changes into much newer or to code that we have never met, because we are able to do more.
Makes sense.
So with that, it means that we need to enable people to step into code that they don't know, comprehend it much faster, and make sure that the changes that they make to it actually make sense.
To what extent is this an AI-based solution? Because I hear about how coding is made simpler, and I think what you're doing is really interrogating the existing code and offering up those insights to the developers. Is that a simplistic way of thinking about it?
Absolutely. And to developers and to non-developers alike.
Right.
But yes, so we are AI native, right? We started with the AI event and kind of everything that we do is about deep integration of AI functionalities with non-AI and proper algorithmic deterministic pieces. The thing about AI is that it's wonderful, its ability to explain meaning and to infer why do things look the way they are to the extent it's possible. It is very bad at repeatability and the ability to be trusted in what it provides.
It's basically a random number generator.
Yes, but
With probabilistic models.
Right, but I have a lot of respect to that probability.
Yeah.
It is incredible. We use it all every day in everything that we do. That said, when it comes to developing in legacy core systems of banking or financial institutions, this is a risk that you have a very big problem to take, right? And rightfully so. We don't want our money to disappear because of mistake in a vibe coding app. Therefore, you have to introduce a very robust frame of what is deterministic, what is trustworthy before you are able to touch the LLM-driven activities. And that's what we have built, is this foundational layer that is then being pulled and used by the LLM for repeatable explainability of the system.
Explainability, keyword.
Right.
And what I saw also is you're mapping all the touch points across all the interactions, whether they're
Right.
customer interactions, other system interactions. And I mean, everything here is a live demo at
Right.
Finovate, and I saw it, kind of flowing through the charts
Yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we basically start from what we call entry points. It's API calls or user interaction points in which things happen in the system. And then we map out the full flow of activity and the kind of the community of interacted elements of the system to achieve a certain result, which is usually a data change in the backend. All of this is happening is a comprehensive piece, and we are able to extract those and clean them out and then name them, explain them, and have them pre-made and defined for the user, being the engineer or the product manager, to actually understand exactly what they're talking about in a repeatable way. So not hoping that the LLM will this time figure out exactly which pieces relate to what. They actually have control about what is the definitions of what their system is doing.
Is this something that the system, the bank or the financial institution, and are you just financial institutions, or are you doing this with other sectors as well?
Mostly with financial institutions, because on top of the technology that is required here, there's a business understanding that is required, and we ingest directly into what we do.
And the more you do one sector, the more you understand the sector.
Exactly. And we come from the sector, so we bring that knowledge with us in collaboration with Bian and other type of kind of orchestrating elements that have a view of what good architecture looks like, for example.
Does this reside in the cloud? Is it actually resident at the bank site, or how does the actual process take place?
Right. So generally, no. We are talking about legacy systems. The number of banks that or insurance company that so far were excited to send their code to a random cloud was zero, right? We have, of course, that option.
Yeah, but that's not the one that's selling.
No. So the way we implement is we deploy it on their premises environment, sometimes on their cloud endpoint, and sometimes really on premise if they have the right on-premise LLM capability. So if they bought their own GPUs and have LLMs that can run, strong LLMs that can run locally, we can consume those as well. But it is, of course, an AI solution. So access to an LLM is critical in however we implement the solution.
How does the pricing work? Is it by line of code? Is it by project? How do you price it out?
So since the product is something that is ongoing use, it's not necessarily a project, because it's not that we just migrate and we're done.
Okay.
Oftentimes you will choose to maintain the legacy system. So yeah, line of code is a very good indication for the size of the complexity that we're addressing, and therefore pricing comes from there. User is another good indication. So we create a structure that combines those two as indication points, tailored to the perspective of that specific bank or insurance company.
I guess you're early stage enough that you've got a couple of folks in production. You got some proof of concepts out there.
Correct.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that came to my mind when I was watching this. Is this almost looks too good to be true? It looks so good out there. How do we know it works? I guess the answer is watch the folks who have signed up.
Exactly. So we know that it works because we're using it. None of the things that we do is impossible. It's not like outside of the realm of reason. It's just very good engineering, very good structuring, and a lot of industry understanding of what pieces need to come together in order to provide this type of solution. And I think one of the biggest advantages is rethinking what is the problem, right? Mm-hmm. And that the problem is not that the legacy system itself is evil or dead or none of that. It is the fact that we just cannot understand it. Is that you're losing the people that are able to understand it, you're losing the knowledge. If we are able to address those and provide the teams with the capabilities to enhance and evolve systems, you no longer are kind of a hostage of that system. You're actually in control, and you can change from a strategic choice of how do I replace to a tactical choice of actually where do I want to keep, where do I want to change, and when do I want to replace.
Makes sense. I think you told me you're based in the Netherlands. Your client base so far is in the EU primarily or entirely.
Correct.
And you're looking potentially at some point in the not too distant future.
Correct. So we have several conversations with some of the larger institutions, both banks and investment companies, but we are a European company first, so that enabled us to have a lot more interactions and first engagements here. We will be coming to Finovate in the US in September.
Oh, the fall okay, in New York City. See you there again.
So we will be there again. We will see you there. And
defend your crown.
Yes, hopefully. It's 2 years in a row now. So I
will. I did not realize that. Here
here in Europe.
This will be your first US showing.
Yes.
In September?
So this will be our first US event. This is the first time we'll actually start going across the pond to the other side. Because of capacity and focus as a startup, you need to be very focused in what you're doing and deliver. So hence that's where we are. But soon enough, that's the next step.
Well, if people don't want to wait till September and Finovate Fall, what's the best way to find out more?
Just reach out to me. You can find our contact details on the website at tweezr.io, or email me at ohad@tweezr.io.
And I'll put that in the show notes, but it's TWEEZR.
Correct.
Is that like the pair of tweezers?
It is like so the analogy that's brought in, it's like surgical intervention into existing systems instead of doing an open heart surgery. And maybe the visual one is, you think about the bowl of spaghetti that is the existing code base or the existing legacy system. It's the ability to tweeze out one strain of spaghetti and actually make changes to that, rather than just dumping your head into a massive bowl of spaghetti.
I love it. Ohad Kotler, CEO, co-founder of Tweezr. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
So I was really happy. I did not know very much about this company before. I did not know they were defending their crown from the prior year. The less I know, the better. I feel like I'm giving a more objective, look at them. But I'm also now looking forward to seeing them defend their crown again when they come. They say they'll be in New York City at Finovate Fall this September. So looking forward to seeing that. Another company with a really good backstory that, again, I was not aware of until after the fact, which means that did not color my judgment about them, is a company called Keyless, who's had a lot going on since they've presented last year at Finovate Europe. My conversation with Tim Broadfoot. We'll get a little bit more into those details. I'm here on day 2 of Finovate Europe with Tobin Broadfoot, the product director of Keyless. Tobin, you were on stage yesterday during the demo sessions, and I understand that I was not here last year, unfortunately, but I understand Keyless won Best of Show in 2025, which turned out, I don't know if there's a cause effect there or not, but not long after that, we were acquired by Ping Identity.
I'm certainly happy to claim that was exactly the only reason why we got acquired. But certainly it was an important moment in the year, and it's a great kind of validation that you're doing something that is important and solving a real problem for customers. So yeah, it was great to win, and certainly didn't hurt. Let's put it that way.
And I guess by having that reach of Ping Identity, which is a much broader, international scope, it gets you into new markets like the US, I would assume.
Totally, and that's the we've always felt really confident that we have a great product that solves a real problem. But getting your foot in the door and keeping the sales cycle short in these large banks and financial institutions, certainly that's something that Ping Identity can really help, both in Europe and in the US and globally.
Now, the thing that jumped out at me from your presentation was that whole notion of, it's facial biometrics, recognition, validation, authentication, but with no biometric data retained, which I have to assume is one of the things that really appealed to Ping as well. But my brain just couldn't conceive of exactly how that was done. You gave me a little bit of a brief tutorial on that yesterday. So
yeah, of course. And the first thing I'll say is, so Ping, you're dead right, because initially Ping knew they wanted to add biometric authentication. Once they started to understand the vendor and the space, it became a non-negotiable for them that they'd work with a provider that was privacy preserving, as we say, or we also term it zero knowledge biometrics. Second point, how do we do that? So I'll try and keep it brief, but it's based on a cryptographic technique known as secure multi-party computation. SMPC is the thing you hear it referred to. And essentially what it allows you to do is to compare two numbers without revealing the numbers themselves. So in cryptography, there was a problem called Yale's millionaire problem.
Yeah, I kept thinking the Monty Hall problem is the one that I think of from another setting. The millionaire problem, if you can explain that.
Yeah, so in this cryptographic problem, which has been around since the 80s, Yale posited, how could you perform an operation which allowed you to compare which of two millionaires was richer without either of them finding out who had exactly how much money. They don't want to reveal. They don't want to reveal how much money they have, but they want to know who's the richer one. One of our founders, Dr. Paolo Gasti, who works at the New York Institute of Technology and is a professor of cryptography, he basically was the first one to apply that technique of SMPC, which solves Yale's millionaires problems, but apply it to biometrics. And that allows us to process the selfie, turn that into a set of biometric markers, and then understand whether this is the same person that originally enrolled without us ever seeing those biometric markers, the measurements on the face, or indeed the selfie. And that's the big breakthrough. And what it means for customers that's particularly important is that they don't have to work with a vendor who is then storing and sitting on this huge honeypot of biometric markers that could be used to reconstruct the face.
I can just imagine the fear factor on that one, but if you can make that go away.
Yes. And for some of our competitors who do store the biometric templates, I know for a fact that it comes up time and time again as a real challenge in the sales cycle.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
But that was basically, I guess, what the wow factor from 2025. You were actually positioning something yet again in 2026, a new breakthrough, right? The anti-injection.
Yeah. So the what we do around the user experience, because we process the selfie on device, so it's incredibly quick. You see, less than a second. We can't be beaten on that. We can't be beaten on privacy. The one that every biometric vendor has to work on continually is security. And what I mean by security is preventing presentation attacks, we call them. So that might be someone showing a screen with your face on it, high quality paper, latex mask, you name it, we got to deal with it. So we have to prevent those, and we also have to prevent injection attacks. That's where during the process, someone actually injects a video of your face. You're quite right. Like a big breakthrough for us. There was a new anti-injection certification for the first time for biometric vendors that came out in November 2024. We were the first in the world to achieve a high level of assurance against injection attacks. That gives our customers confidence that we prevent attackers from injecting a video. That's incredibly important because you can have all that wonderful privacy, but if you can't actually be sure that it's the same person because you're vulnerable to attacks, they lose confidence. So it's the external validation of us doing that really well is a really big breakthrough for us.
Now, when you mention it appeals to your customers, we're here at a financial services conference.
Yep.
Customers are financial institutions.
Yep.
What is the spectrum geographically? Any other sectors? Who do you work with?
Look, financial services is the
It
big
is
one.
exclusively?
Not exclusively, but that's where we've been most successful. Certainly in Europe, two of our founders are Italian, so we have Intesa San Paolo, the biggest bank in Italy, but also we've added this year Mediobanca, Mediolanum, Unicredit as well. So we're really starting to corner the market in Italy. N26 is the biggest neobank in Europe, in mainland Europe.
Well.
So they were an important customer, and then a bunch of crypto exchanges. Outside of that, where we see big growth is now in workforce as well. So we call it the frontline use case. It's frontline worker use case, where often in these environments, the workers aren't allowed access to hardware or smartphone or a token. So what they're starting to do, or through Keyless, is iPad on the wall, tap wherever your name is, show your face, and then you're in, and that's how you're authenticating on your way. And that means you don't have to carry anything, you don't have to remember anything, but you also don't have to share your biometric data. So we're seeing big growth in that, particularly in the US.
In the US, financial services?
Financial services is going to be huge for us as well in the US, and we're really excited about that. The only difference in the US is that GDPR isn't in play, and so there's less pressure around privacy and storing selfies, but it's still something
it's looming.
It's looming, and it's still something that no chief compliance officer or CISO in the US, they don't want to have a vendor storing selfies, so it's still a big play for us.
Exactly. So how's the best way to find out more, especially for the US audience? But where's the...
So we're going to be branded as Ping One Recognized now, so if you're specifically interested in the keyless solution, search for that. But pingidentity.com is also where you'll find out more about Ping as well as Keyless as part of the Ping family.
The separate link on that page.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Tobin Broadfoot, Product Director at Keyless. Thanks again. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Glenn.
So you're probably familiar with Ping Identity. They are now, Keyless is part of Ping Identity, as we talked about. I can see why they were interested in their solution after seeing what they had to show on stage. So along with Tweezr, I mentioned that they won Best of Show this year. The other two Best of Show winners, that again, the audience vote that came out on top, a company called Ablement. They referred to themselves as modernizing legacy lending systems, which, to some extent sounds a little bit like the process of Tweezr, trying to figure out a way to bring old legacy code up to standard. I liked one of the quotes I took away from the Ablement presentation was, we can't yet trust enterprise software to vibe coding, not just yet. So I thought that one was interesting as well. And another company, another winner, a 3-year-old company called Serene, who really, I guess, are kind of a cross between a compliance and a financial inclusion play. And what they do is using agentic reasoning, AI, if you will, they identify early signals of financial stress among consumers and help coach customer call center representatives to help get them to the best solutions to keep them on track to maintaining a financial level of financial health. So 3 winners there across 3 different countries. Ablement based in Budapest, Serene right from the, I guess, home stage advantage in London, and Tweezr's based in the Netherlands. So something of the United Nations right there from the outcome of Finovate Europe this year. We've got 2 more interviews that I want to share with one really interesting company and one of the presenters that I saw also from the stage. And we'll be having those conversations next week here on the Big Cast. So check in again and hear those, as well as I will share my Best of Show ballot. The other 2 companies that I voted for, along with Tweezr, as I mentioned, had gotten one of my votes. You can track this down next week. If you don't want to forget, please do subscribe, like, whatever you need to do at your podcast platform of choice. You can always just go back to the Best Innovation Group website at the Media tab and find our content as well, big-fintech.com. If you're interested, we do this pretty much at all the conferences, including last year's Finovate Fall. We had 2 episodes with, I think, 5 or 6 companies that we really thought were standouts. I'll post a link to one of those as well so you can track that down, as well as all of our past content is out there too. Again, would appreciate you to let us know what you think. Drop us a note, but subscribe, like. You can find us on Apple Music, Spotify, etc., etc. We tend to have new content every Tuesday. My name is Glen Sarvati. You can track me down via my firm 154 Advisors. You can find me on LinkedIn is probably the fastest way. You can also find me via the Best Innovation Group. As I've said multiple times before, big-fintech.com. You can find our grand poobah John Best out there as well. Follow us on LinkedIn. Best Innovation Group's got lots of cool stuff going on, and you can check out all the services on the website. Don't forget about CU Unplugged. Don't forget about the Town Hall. Don't forget about checking in again next week, because we'll have lots of more good stuff for you. And hey, it's conference season. If you're going to GAC, give a holler. We'll see you out there as well. And until then, thanks as always for listening.
Check back each week for the latest from the Big Cast. Or better yet, we hope you'll consider subscribing for free via Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Tweet us at Big Fintech. Email info@big-fintech.com. Or visit us at big-fintech.com and click on the Media tab, where you can post a comment or check out our archive of hundreds of past episodes. See you next week.